Hey everyone, Brian Beeler from Storage Review doing another LinkedIn Live, and I think we might even be live on X as well if I've connected all the dots. Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out. But this is another in our live event series of unwebinars where we really talk tech with companies that are doing neat things, that have neat technology, and want to get into why things work, how they work, and we're doing it without any slides and without any reg forms. So you can just enjoy this, have the content, have a good time, ask your questions. This is a live event. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to those as well, because this shouldn't be a monolithic conversation. We want you guys involved. So with me today is my new good friend, Jim Gallagher from JetStor. Jim, thanks for hopping in here.
Oh, Brian, thank you so much for having me. I'm a little bummed though I don't get to go show any slides. I know everyone.
No slides. You've been banned. You didn't ask.
Loves to wake up first thing in the morning and go, I hope I get to see a PowerPoint today.
No PowerPoints. You're absolutely banned. You guys fill an interesting spot in the tech universe. We just recently did a whole paper and a video on the QSAN array that high availability, 2-node, 26 NVMe SSDs. The thing was wildly impressive, unified storage. You're here representing QSAN, but as JetStor. Tell us just a little bit about that relationship.
Yeah, we've been a long-term strategic partner of QSAN's with a relationship going back well over 20 years at this point. QSAN is based out of Taiwan, and their primary engineering and sales and support team are there. So we act as their strategic partner in the Americas and Canada. And again, just had a great, fantastic relationship with them for multiple decades now. I've personally known them now for going on 2 years. Went out to Taiwan last year to meet the team, and just a great set of folks making a great product.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with them for, I guess, probably 7 or 8 years at this point. And what strikes me about the QSAN product is they found a way to deliver enterprise features at an affordable price point. And that's a trick that's not easy to accomplish. Now, you've been there for 2 years with JetStor. I knew the prior owner, Crazy Gene, I like to call him. I'm not sure he cares for that moniker, but high energy dude in this space.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You guys are effectively repping QSAN in the States, and then you've taken over the company. I mean, this is got to be quite a transition for you, and an exciting thing at the same time, right?
Oh yeah, it's been phenomenal, been fantastic. These past 2 years have really been an exercise of me getting to know the storage community as a whole. Really one of the great things about QSAN is that it supports a wide variety of ecosystem players in the storage world. They're very flexible about what drives you can bring to their platform. So to that extent, both JetStor and QSAN bring these decades of relationships from the broader storage world to bear on their products. And I think that's a big part of how they're able to deliver such an efficient package by really leveraging the technology in a smart way with a broad set of partners. So for myself, it's been fantastic. I started my career as a storage admin for Sun Microsystems back in the day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Those big thumper boxes. So it's been great to kind of come full circle now, like almost 20 years later, and get back.
It's in your blood, because when you said I'm learning, you're relearning or learning new things about the storage world, that can be a scary place depending on which corners you're delving into.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously things have changed. Drives have gotten bigger and faster, but really it hasn't changed all that much, right? There's new protocols and exciting new use cases, but other than kind of HPC getting a facelift and now being called AI, it's really kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, like HPC, business analytics, all those sorts of things that just used to exist that are getting rebadged and rebranded. Well, the box that we looked at specifically, let's talk about that, because it's really, I kind of want to say like a standard or garden variety 2U storage box, but it's really a storage appliance, which I think is an important distinction, because in the price band where you guys play in this entry or SMB storage area, there's a lot of software-defined stuff out there that might be single node, or you could put a couple nodes together. But this is really more traditionally viewed as a storage appliance. Talk about that box a little bit.
Yeah, the appliance form factor is really QSAN's sweet spot. If you look at their overall product portfolio, it is definitely appliance oriented. And from our point of view, we at JetStor, we have a wide variety of products that we bring to the market. But honestly, the vast majority of our business comes from the QSAN line. And the reality is that most businesses and most use cases, I think, are directly served by an appliance form factor. In a previous life, I've worked in the distributed systems world, and God help you if you have to start adding more nodes and doing clustering. It just makes everything like a lot more complex. So QSAM, by focusing on their firmware-based architecture that can come in a variety of different flavors, packages, but really the same kind of core functionality, really is able to jam a lot of functionality without a lot of, I think, overhead that you see in traditional enterprise products.
Mhm.
And that's really due to the fact that they can really remain focused on their core value prop. I mean, like, yeah, if you want, distributed stuff, object store, or, scale out to hundreds of petabytes, like we could come up with something for you, but those use cases are pretty rare. And the fact that you can take, something like this 2U 26 bay appliance and then scale it up to, multiple petabytes in a single logical unit, that architecture is really rock solid and kind of hard to beat. If you could think that you can contain, I think it's up to like 16.7 petabytes in a single logical unit. And we've done pretty big deployments where we just have like essentially multiple of these, like we call them pods, baked in together, and do our scaling that way. So by virtue of just keeping it simple and executing really well on the details, I think is really what just makes it a fantastic option for really like most businesses and most use cases.
Yeah, and like I said, you get the HA, you're getting multi-protocol support if you need the legacy. I shouldn't say legacy. If you need fiber channel, or if you want, fast Ethernet 100, 200 gig E for modern workloads. We did that. We tested that over Ethernet to a GPU box. We looked at how you could connect those new DGX Spark devices to give you a GB10 on your desk, but it has no storage. So maybe putting those in the data center adjacent to fast Ethernet storage is compelling. There's so many neat use cases for this box that most of your customers probably aren't going to push that hard or that far. But it's nice to know that you can do almost literally anything you want with this thing.
Yeah, we were chatting a little bit about some of the use cases that people use storage for, and there's really just not that many. At the end of the day, and so having one box that can do most things really well, again at a great price point, it's tough to beat. But the cool thing about, like, especially these new ones that QSAN has come out, especially this XN series, they're able to leverage a lot of these like new protocols that are really able to push the boundaries and deliver, ultimately like what's top of the line performance for really any hardware platform.
Well, the NVMe over Fabric support is the big thing, right? And we looked at that TCP and RDMA, and we've got a bunch of stats and details in our report on the website. But yeah, you got to be careful, right? Because you think about something that's in a particular price band, and I think most of us, and if you look at like Reddit, for instance, where a lot of small IT shops that go for advice, hey, we need X, Y, and Z, but our budget is whatever. How do we accomplish these goals? There's so many fragmented solutions. There's a lot of block only solutions. There's a lot of software defined solutions. But they almost always have some sort of compromise to be able to deliver that solution at whatever the number is, 25, 30 grand, whatever the number, right? And so this is really unique in the space, this series from QSAN, in that it really doesn't have a compromise. I mean, maybe if you need some really large scale, but then there's other solutions for that. I mean, for SMBs, I can't really think of where this would be falling short or otherwise short on features that you would find in anything else in the entry band from Dell or HPE or whatever. there's really not.
Yeah, we run into like an interesting set of challenges delivering the QSAN appliances to the market and really around the price point. In that QSAN is really almost like kind of like the best kept secret in the industry. People almost will do like a double take when they see the price point and the features and functionality. So it's almost like a little mental hurdle to jump. And that, a lot of legacy, like we'll call them tier one storage vendors.
Right.
If you do just a side-by-side comparison of the features and speeds and everything, like storage has more or less commoditized at this point, outside of some very narrow use cases. So customers really have to ask themselves, like, what are they paying for in a tier one type environment? And is that something that they really need? Because we run into scenarios where we'll be pitching QSAN in a competitive environment, and it's not 10% cheaper or 20% cheaper. It's half the cost or more than half the cost, right? And so it's fantastic that they're really starting to pick up steam and get the brand name out there. We at JetStor, like when we started our relationship with QSAN, we actually used to white label their products and sell them under the JetStor brand. But we made the strategic decision 2 years ago to actually start leaning more into the QSAN brand and start to help them develop their brand in the United States, simply because it's just tough to beat, right? And they're really starting to accelerate and pick up the pace and deliver, a great set of new products that I think it's really kind of unheard of in the storage industry.
No, I think you're right. And we look at, we're in this thing as far as you are too, but the products in that band are, like I said, you went through them, and even like small NAS is another thing that we'll see. But there's just a set of compromises. If you just need unstructured data, then fine, so be it. But if you're trying to serve multiple constituents within your organization, if you've got databases, if you got other block workloads, plus you want to be able to go after some of the unstructured work, plus whatever else. I mean, that's really where this comes in and can be an amazingly productive tool for that diverse set of needs.
Yeah, and we do tend to see more of a consolidation of workloads in our world. And I don't know if that's just due to like an overall kind of flattening of IT in general, especially on-premise IT. I think like when cloud came out with DevOps, everything just became like a broad, technology landscape. But being able to, consolidate workloads, condense everything into a very like efficient package, it's very compelling when you take a hard look at it.
So you talked a little bit about being in these pitches and going up against other tier one products, but IT's being in a general state of upheaval, whether it's having to respond to corporate demands for AI answers or hypervisors, still a big problem, I'm sure, for a lot of your customers.
Oh, yeah.
What do you see there? I mean, we tested this thing with Proxmox, showed how it could come together in an alternative world. VMware, still will be very popular for the large enterprises, but let's get into some of the fundamental blocking and tackling for enterprise IT. Hypervisor, what do you guys see there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the shakeup with Broadcom and VMware, I mean, we're still feeling the impacts. I think we will be for probably another decade, right? The big shift we have seen has been primarily around broader open alternatives, folks like Proxmox, like you tested in the article, and other solutions, right? Again, like the QSAN platform is really wide and supports, most virtualization strategies that are out there. But there has been a large, compelling effort to be cognizant of the business implications of some of these licensing decisions. And then as well around in the, not just the hypervisor world, but also the hyperscaler world, there's a big push around repatriation as well. When IT teams look at, the true cost of running certain workloads in, a cloud environment versus on-prem. And I think, we're starting to see a broader resurgence in on-prem workloads essentially come back home.
Well, we've seen this, and AI articulates it, because the challenge of moving that much data, or any large sum of data, to the cloud is problematic. I mean, it just, it's hard to get it all up there, do your inferencing or your fine tuning, your training, whatever it is that you need to do on this large data set, and then bring it back. I mean, it's a lot. And suppose if you're rigged up where you're really sending the data kind of real time as you're getting it to the cloud, maybe it's a little bit easier in using the cloud resources. But that was a popular modality when GPUs were so hard to find, where nobody could get access to these things. But the power now of the RTX Pro 6000s, it's wild how good those cards are. We've got a server we're about to drop a review on that has 4 of them in there, and they're just exquisite. And I think for most enterprise AI, it's not going to be the heavy training lift. For your customers especially, it's going to be, how do I take these tools and leverage them against the data I have, and where is all this data? I think on-prem is probably the answer for a lot of these organizations.
It definitely has to be a part of the conversation. I think when cloud first came out, there was this idea of efficiency built into it, and this thought that, like, hey, if we're only paying for what we use, and we traditionally have so much idle resources, it'll be a net win from a financial perspective, even to migrate everything to the cloud. And I think the reality that we've seen play out, and my background even before coming to JetStor was in the cloud cost optimization space. And I even worked at AWS as a high-end solutions architect, and they tell you in the training, like, don't say it's cheaper, because it's not. The benefit of the cloud, right, is primarily around speed to market and being able to iterate quickly and develop things in a prototype fashion. But the reality is, like, once you get to scale, both the cost challenges and the operational challenges can become cumbersome. So it's up to individual businesses to ascertain, like, whether that's the right modality for their use cases, and really take a hard look at all of the costs that are involved. Now, the cloud providers don't necessarily always make that easy to figure out, why is my bill so high? Why is it different from one month to the other month? And that's really, a big draw and pullback to the traditional on-premise IT world, is really just around the idea of predictability of, can I even get these resources? That's another big challenge in the cloud, is when you're competing against 50,000 other customers, just getting access to the darn things is hard enough in and of itself, even compared to trying to buy one off the street.
So what does the cloud world look like for your customers? Obviously, there's still hybrid. It doesn't have to be all one or all the other, but how much business are your customers doing in the cloud?
It's a mix, right? We tend to serve customers that are obviously more oriented or biased towards on-premise IT. The cloud comes into play for our customers primarily as a backup target. If you think about, like, a traditional 3-2-1 data architecture, having that remote offsite backup that's available is very attractive, right?
Right.
And obviously, like, the overhead of not having to manage it yourself is, again, it's just another tool that exists in IT team's tool belt that needs to be leveraged, I think, appropriately, right? The message from the hyperscalers was like, just move everything. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And I think we're just seeing a little bit of, or at least from our customers, right, a little bit of either hesitancy towards that idea, or a little bit of pullback and healthy skepticism.
Well, I mean, I think it was sort of in their best interest to try to tell everybody to go. And in a time when you need dynamic resources quickly, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And that's the best benefit, in the simplicity to be able to get online quickly with whatever it is you're trying to do. But you're right, the drawbacks are clear.
I think also the technology has evolved to the point now where the software substrates that power the cloud, things like containers, right? These technologies are available in on-premise flavors as well. So I think you're correct that the marketing messaging almost had to be like, move everything to the cloud just for those folks to grow and be a profitable business for themselves. But over the intervening 10, 15, 20 years that cloud has been a thing, the technology has caught up sufficiently to where you can adopt a cloud-like paradigm on-prem and then burst to the cloud. Like that pipe dream, I think, has really become a reality at this point, and we're seeing it in real time.
Yeah, I would say so. But at the same time, at the big tech trade shows we go to, I've heard more in the last probably 18 months than ever before of the conversation about keeping data local, keeping it under control, keeping it available for whatever's next, whether it's inference or something else. Because I think there is a paranoia there that the AI surge caught a lot of organizations flat-footed. They weren't ready. And then their board said, or their investors said, or whatever, what's our strategy here? And there wasn't one. They just weren't ready. And so now I think there's, how do I keep my data always available, kind of keep it clean, kind of keep it ready, so whatever happens, I can adapt to that. And whether it's intelligence for my own organization, for support, for sales, or if it's for customers or whatever. But I don't know that we'll be caught so off guard like that again, at least not anytime soon.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. And I think there's a big cost aspect involved as well. I think it's just the reality that, especially like coming out of the pandemic, the sort of fervor around tech and tech spend really had to be reeled in, as you see it both play out in some of the like hiring decisions that are being played both at like the hyperscaler level, where people just went kind of nuts for a while. I don't know if that's downstream of like zero interest rate policies or what have you. But I think for a while there was just sort of a Wild West mentality of like, let's just go nuts, right?
And you can't lose, right? So whoever goes hardest wins fastest or something.
And I think that really was downstream a lot of economic policies that encouraged sort of reckless growth at all costs. And being part of the VC ecosystem was the hot thing for a while. It didn't matter if you're profitable; it was just grow. But I think now we're pivoting back to this more idea of a sustainable growth, and you see that play out, both from a technology perspective, but then also from a business perspective, right? And I think it's like in the storage world, a lot of that gets overlooked because we're so like tech oriented and like nerd oriented, right? Like we just want to know what's cool and new and fast and how many IOPS can it do. But the reality is that this stuff exists in a business ecosystem, and we have to be cognizant of the broader constraints that drive the solutions that we adopt. Whether those are technical or business or cultural, right? Those are very real factors that have to be considered.
No, you're right. I mean, it's when we got the array in, the one thing we wanted to do, of course, we have to do the performance because that's kind of what we do. And in fact, we beat the spec sheet that QSAN had, so we were pretty happy about that. But it was also, like I said, to show some real workloads with GDSIO, to show kind of how you could supply GPUs with fast storage, or how you can integrate with Proxmox, how you can do some of these other real things that are important to customers. Because as much as we love to play with liquid cooling and like whatever is next on the bleeding edge of technology, that's not really for everyone. I doubt you have very many customers that have CDUs and are running liquid systems in their operations. Although maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you've got some guys that are on the edge.
Man, I love that stuff. I was just at the NVIDIA GTC event in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and a lot of that stuff was on display. And man, it makes for really, really cool trade show booths. Lots of cool pipes and stuff going around. But you're right. That is kind of the outlier compared to mom and pop shops that just need a file share or a simple virtualization cluster or a remote backup target or a box that can do all that stuff and not have to spend a month and hire 10 engineers to do it.
Well, yeah, because they can't. I mean, it's just not a thing. So if it's not liquid cooling and plumbing your enterprise for the big training servers, What are the other challenges? We talked about cost quite a bit. I suppose day two sort of manageability is a big thing, but we're kind of getting back to the root of the blocking and tackling that storage does. I mean, it just got to work and be reliable. But what are the other concerns that your customers typically have?
I mean, I think our customers have pretty typical concerns, right? In that, as you mentioned, like storage is so foundational to every computing workload, or the vast majority of them, right? Outside of ones that are like in-memory databases, uh, that, primarily like, is this thing going to work? Am I going to get paged in the middle of the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to keep this thing operational. And again, that goes back to our earlier comments about like just getting the QSAN name out there, and the challenge of selling a product that is at a lower price point than a tier one brand. Because I think whether implicitly or not, people associate lower cost with lower quality. But I don't think that's necessarily the case with something like these QSAN units, and especially when they're configured and delivered in something with like a dual controller architecture,
Mm-hmm.
where these things are designed with the reality that like, yeah, components fail in any system, right? From an airplane to a storage array, right? Like these things need to be designed with the reality that stuff goes wrong at times. And our customers, are not that esoteric in that they just want the thing to work and work well and not be a headache, and not get nickel and dimes when there's a renewal up, or have to deal with all sorts of crazy features that they may not want or need. So I think that's why they come to us and why they come to QSAN, is for that simplicity and the intersection of like a reliability first message and a simplicity first, and that this thing just like does what you need it to without a lot of like fuss and overhead.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for a minute, because the simplicity, I've seen so many people reach out and they send us their quotes for infrastructure, and they can be so absurd, where the prices get broken out and you're like, really, $15,000 for a 8 terabyte SSD or whatever? Like, it'll be so crazy, and they'll be stacked together. Then you talked about support and licensing. Sometimes there's, oh, you want this feature, that's an extra 6,900 a year or whatever. And it's really hard, if you're not in that world, to look at that quote and really understand what you're looking at and why. And now we're past business impact. We're really talking about the financial impact. I assume you guys try to simplify this. I've never seen a quote from JetStor. We just get the systems in and mess with them, and thankfully our invoices always say zero. But for someone that's getting one with a number, are you trying to simplify that so that it's not so confusing to understand what your all-in cost is?
Oh, absolutely. We try to make things very simple for our customers. I come from an engineering background first and foremost, right? I'm really like allergic to marketing speak and obfuscation when it comes to customers trying to understand like what's going on. Like, I want it to be dead simple when you get a quote from us or a spec sheet to know like exactly what you're getting. So from our point of view, like it'll typically, depending on the complexity, of course, but it's going to be like a line item of like, here's the box, here's, is it a single or dual controller? How many drives does it have? Did you need an extra HBA card for, different speeds? And that's kind of it. QSAN does have a couple of like software license features, but it's a one-time cost for the thing. It's just around like synchronous replication for the most part, and dedupe and compression, but they're not egregious. It's a one-time thing per the unit. And again, it's context dependent. Like, do you want that? Do you absolutely have to have that? So much of my time is like people come to me saying, I want dedupe and compression. I'm like, I want to argue with you and be like, I don't know if you really do, right? Because there's trade-offs involved that customers aren't always cognizant of. And, the reality is that, businesses on the flip side that come to market with, software features. They're trying to put food on their table as well. And, however they do it is their business. But customers don't really like it. You know what I mean? They want it to be straightforward. They want it to be simple. And that's why we choose to partner and deal with QSAN after 2 decades.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because I mean, you talk about competing against the tier ones and in the entry storage band, and most of those products aren't produced by those companies. They're licensed controllers from Seagate primarily, and so it's not. I mean, I don't think anyone's trying to hide it or be secretive, but like the idea that there's so much, proprietary whatever in this space. I mean, that maybe there's not. I mean, I don't want to diminish it, because the value those controllers provide is still quite robust. But when you look at, again, go back to the cost, it's just really hard to argue with what QSAN's doing here.
Again, I just think we're at a turning point in the storage world. I mean, the broader IT world, obviously as a whole. But if you look at the legacy of where storage came from, it was folks like EMC, right? Where the features were the difference. It made a big deal, like whether you had an EMC or not, and like you paid for it back in the day. But the use cases that were served by the big iron players of the world, I think, have moved more to distributed white box architectures. So when you need extreme scale, extreme availability, extreme performance, that isn't just like a big shiny box you get from a guy with Tesla loafers.
Well, so those guys were solving a lot of technical problems, though, to be fair, that have been kind of architected out of the product. Not that
exactly.
They're talking about in the days of early flash, how do we accelerate hard drives now with intelligent data placement or batch jobs like Compellent that would run overnight to move hot blocks into flash so that they're ready for the next day. Like, some of that technology was transformational at the time, to be able to get that level of performance out of these boxes with just a little bit of flash, or just a little bit of SCM, or just a little bit of things, like as time marched on. But now this box we're talking about, it's all flash. And I'm sure you still sell a lot of hard drive based boxes, but flash is not unobtainable anymore. And the performance profile for these diverse workloads boxes that are being hit by all sorts of different things at once, flash provides a huge advantage.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting in terms of the storage mediums that we see out there and how that plays out in real life. Because yes, we do sell still a wide amount of traditional disk-based storage. Flash is obviously catching up rapidly more and more, but I think if you just look at the sheer CAGR for bit growth year over year, there's just not enough fab capacity in the world to keep up. And especially with the advent of technologies now with like SMR and HAMR, where we're getting to drives that are over 30 terabytes, and I've seen roadmaps for 50 and 100 terabyte hard drives. I think the reality is that that medium is not going away anytime soon either. But to your point, we don't have to be so stingy about our application of flash anymore. It's really more of a decision to use the right tool for the job, right? And understanding what use cases need, as near real-time latency and throughput requirements, and those that don't, and designing the solution appropriately and architecting it in a manner to achieve the business outcomes that are cognizant of the implications of the mediums that you choose, right? So
I
think the box of like $1 per terabyte for disk, and then $1 per terabyte for flash, and we can massage those numbers a little bit, but the reality is that's kind of the decision you have to make.
Well, the flash world's changing too, because of the box you guys sent us had some Phison drives in there that were really high performance, and that's great for certain workloads. But with QLC, I mean, we're seeing drives up to shipping that are 122 terabytes. I mean, that's not everyone needs 26 of those in one storage box. But if you did, I mean, you've got the flexibility to account for that. And the flash market too is really trying to come up with other products that aren't shipping yet, but will be soon, to really attack that cost barrier, which is really the last thing that flash needs to address. Hasn't quite gotten there. But like you said before, if you want deduplicate compression, if you want data, maximize your data footprint on the boxes, yeah, there's a performance hit for that. But if you really want to take those more expensive flash devices and get a 3 or 4 to 1 space value out of them, that's available. And that,
Sure.
when you do that, the economics get pretty close to what you're doing with hard drives. Plus, you've got some other power advantages and some other things. The boxes are a lot lighter when you have to put them in the rack. I know you only do that once, but they're a hell of a lot lighter than the hard drive chassis.
Yeah, I remember having to put one of those old Sun thumpers in a rack. It was not fun. Yeah, you're right, and that's what's fun about this job and being in this ecosystem, is keeping up with the pace of change, and that's always been fun about being in storage.
So outside of QSAN specifically, and put your JetStor hat back on for a moment, the pace of change, what would be your one key takeaway, or maybe two, for SMBs that are trying to figure out infrastructure challenges just generally? What's your best couple tips on what to do there?
Yeah, I think my big message to the world is you have to take a really broad, holistic view from the business on down and relative to IT. I think, especially as an engineer at heart, right, we start with like architectures first and solutions first, and try to massage that into a business ecosystem. But the reality is that, we do this stuff in a business context, and it has to solve problems, deliver value, generate revenue. All of these ancillary factors that go into technical decisions really need to be considered from an organization, right? So as people are looking at infrastructure challenges, it's not so much about like what brand of storage do I get, but it's what modality do I look at? Because there's more options now than ever, right? Do I look at, like we mentioned earlier, like a full cloud-based workload? Do I want to do hybrid? Do I want to do all on-prem? What is my team comfortable with, right? Who are the people that I have, and what are their strengths and skill sets? What's our company's mission? What are we trying to do here? That, I think, is the thing that is most often overlooked when it comes to technical decision making, is considering the broader kind of ecosystem that you play in.
And I guess that's part of your job, is to help, consult with your customers, your clients on that, to help them make good decisions, right?
I had a guy when I worked at AWS, Taylor Reagan. Taylor, if you're watching, shout out. I think he's still over there. He said something really profound once. We were all solutions architects at the time, and he said our job as solutions architects is to help customers navigate trade-offs. And I think about that quote a lot when it comes to technology decisions, because if you just look at, again, like, storage mediums, right? Like, if money were no object, we just put everything in RAM all day. You know what I mean? But the reality is that, cost is a factor. And outside of even just cost, the broader cultural and even like tooling landscape that we play in, those trade-offs also have to be considered when you're making technology decisions. So, like, while I come from like a solution architect background, I try to take that methodology and apply it to like a broader kind of business conversation.
Well, I'm sure that's helpful in a space, again, just all the confusion that these smaller customers are bombarded with, the data, the marketing messaging. It's the toughest place to make an intelligent decision, I think, is at the lower end, not the high end. The high end, you really don't have that many choices. At the lower end, there's so many choices. It's much more confusing. So
yeah, it's like you ever find yourself at the grocery store, like trying to decide between 20 different types of cornflakes. You can run into analysis paralysis. It's a real thing.
So we've talked a lot about SMBs in this conversation, but at the same time, you guys are packing up soon to go to Supercompute in St. Louis. That's a large diversion from from the SMB. Tell me about that and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, JetStor has historically served the supercomputing market. It's been a great show for us to attend for many years. Even prior to coming to JetStor, I used to work at a company called Aspera that did high-speed data transfer. So we would come and like work with some of the cool Internet 2 supercomputing teams. It's always, I mean, just the term supercomputer is just cool, right? like a big Cray was the cool thing when I was a kid. So JetStor, like, our whole MO is just being a no nonsense, meat and potatoes storage company, right? And that message really resonates, I think, with the teams that come to a place like supercomputing, because again, it's typically more like research oriented. Lots of universities, HPC people are pretty smart and clever. Like, they know what they want. They know what's out there. So it's a great show for us to attend, and a great, like, diverse set of customers and partners and friends.
Well, most of your team will be quite comfortable with it. They're in Pittsburgh, right? The show's in St. Louis. I'm in Cincinnati. We'll have a Midwestern triangle of storage thought leadership in St. Louis.
I'm coming up from Austin, so I'll try to keep my barbecue opinions to myself. But
I don't know what'll offend me more, actually. Your Steelers fans that work in the Pittsburgh office, or are you trying to push your barbecue favorites on me? But either way, we're looking forward to it. I know we'll see you there. And for everyone in the audience that's going to be there, make sure you check out these guys. You're in the QSAN booth, is that right? Yeah,
we're co-hosting a booth with QSAN. So it's a QSAN and JetStor booth. Geez, I should remember the number. I think it's 6148 is our booth.
You can't find any booth numbers in there. They dangle those signs up, and then it's always sort of amorphous as to which way they're going, up or down, or am I in row 5 or 6? I don't know.
If you don't find us, I'll come find you. How about that?
Great. Thanks for doing this, Jim. This has been a fun conversation. Oh, I'd be remiss if I don't put the QR code up on this site. There we go. Big Fred. So we've got the QR code up there that's got the link to the report we did. There's a video on YouTube. We've got this conversation that'll be saved on LinkedIn. You can come back and check that out. But fun conversation, and I think what you guys are doing, the QSAN product specifically, is fantastic. But I think what you're doing to bring high quality solutions to the mid-market is really, really important. And if you don't know QSAN yet, give Jim a call. I've got his cell phone. I'll make sure to give that to anyone who asks, and get a hold of him and learn more about these products. Thanks, Jim, again for doing this.
Oh, thanks again, Brian, for having me. I had a blast.